The first thing that I want to show you is how the staff looks like. And as you can see, there's a symbol that is shown at the very beginning. This is what we call a clef. And there are two common kinds of clef, the treble clef and the bass clef. Basically, the treble clef shows us the notes we have to play on the higher half of the piano, or the notes we should be playing using our right hand. And on the other hand, the bass clef tells us the notes for the lower half of the keyboard, or the notes we have to play using our left hand. When reading sheet music, the clef is always placed at the beginning of the staff, and there's usually another staff that is put below it, specifically for the piano, to show the notes that you have to play both in the left and right hands all together. The combination of these two clefs is what we call as the grand staff. Now let us first focus on the treble staff. It is composed of 5 lines and 4 spaces in between them. Each corresponding line and space tell us what note we have to play and where it is on the piano. And remember, since we can see the treble clef at the beginning of the staff, it means that the notes that will be shown here are going to be played using our, you guessed it right, our right hand. The most reliable way to read sheet music is to memorize the notes in each line and spaces of the staff. Now, I'm going to draw the notes on the 5 lines of the staff, and their corresponding notes are as follows: E, G, B, D, and F. Most teachers teach this with mnemonics to make it easier for their students to memorize. Such examples of this are, of course, first one being the most famous is "Every good boy does fine," and the "Every good burger deserves fries." But we also do have some uncommon ones like "Empty garbage before dad flips" and "Elephants go bouncing down fast." But of course, these are just aids for memorization, but whatever mnemonic you use, always remember to read the notes starting from the bottom of the staff. Doing the reverse will cause problems in the future and you'll never hit the right notes. So yeah, the first key thing to remember is to read from bottom to the top. And now let's do the spaces. I'm going to put the notes on the 4 spaces of our staff, and its notes are F, A, C, and E. And yes, it spells the word face, so it's going to be a lot easier to memorize this than the lines. So I guess no need for mnemonics for this one since it's something we're all familiar with. Again, for this one, start reading the notes from bottom upward. Now let's try putting the lines and spaces together, and as you can observe, the notes are written in alphabetical order starting from the bottom note, which is E, then it goes to a space, which is the note F, followed by G on the second line, then it goes back to the beginning of the alphabet, which is A on the third space, then B, and so on. Now we go to the bass clef, where it tells us the notes we have to play on the lower register of the piano using our left hand. Same procedure as earlier, I'm going to draw the notes on the 5 lines of the staff, and these notes are G, B, D, F, and A. Many teachers use mnemonics for this as well. The most common one is "The good boys do fine always," which is pretty famous because it's similar to the mnemonics used for the treble clef, which is the "Every good boy does fine." It helps a lot in memorization when something is similar with the other. But of course, there are also other mnemonics you can use like "Grizzly bear don't fear anything," and if you're a teacher, you can use this one as you teach this to your students while showing them a picture of a brave grizzly bear, which may add a lot of fun to the lesson. And you can also use "Good burritos don't fall apart." Alright, now it's time for the 4 spaces in the bass clef. The notes that corresponds to each of the space are A, C, E, and G. Or simply use the easiest mnemonic there is, which is "All cows eat grass." Let's now bring both the lines and spaces together. Again, it always goes up in alphabetical order, and once it reaches G, it goes back to A. Now, there are common instances where there will be notes that do not fit on the staff. The term we use for these invisible lines that extend the staff are ledger lines. Basically, ledger lines guide us where we are and what note to play when it's already over or under the staff. But for now, The first ledger line I want to teach you in this lesson, and probably the most important one since you are just starting out as a beginner, is this one. So let me just remove the other notes and let us focus on this ledger line note right here. This note is what we call as the middle C, and you can find it right here. If you're using a standard 88-key keyboard, middle C is the 4th C on the piano, and it's also called as the C4. But of course, it varies depending on how many keys the keyboard you're using has. So a rule of thumb is to just have a look at the C that is closest to you when you're sitting in front of the piano. Now please take note that every time you move a step up the staff, you also move up one note on the keyboard. So in this case, starting from C, we move up to the next note, which is D, then E, which is placed on the first line of the treble staff, F, G, and so on all the way to the higher F on the 5th line, which is here. And for the left hand, we do the same thing but in a different direction. We start first at the middle C, and like what we did earlier, every time we take a step down the staff, we also move down one note on the keyboard. So if this is C, this will be B, then A, which is the note on the 5th line of the bass staff, then G, F, all the way down to the lower G. Okay, so now I'm going to show you an image of all the notes in the grand staff and give you a brief summary of everything. First of all, both clefs have 5 lines and 4 spaces with different corresponding notes assigned to each. The treble clef, which is located on top, tells us the notes we need to play on the right hand, and the bass clef tells us the notes we need to play using our left hand. The notes in the grand staff may look a bit overwhelming, but you should always keep in mind that there are various ways to help you memorize, like the examples of mnemonics we used earlier, and of course by repeated practicing. I'm going to give you tips on how to read notes faster and accurately in one of my future videos, so please don't forget to subscribe so you can be updated of my future posts and tutorials. And also keep in mind that the treble clef and bass clef share a note in the middle, which we call as the middle C. Alright, that's it for our lesson for today. I hope that you learned something from this simple video that I made, and also, don't forget to like this video and feel free to comment below if you have any requests with regards to music learning or even teaching if you're a teacher who's just starting out, and I'll be very glad to help. Thank you for watching and keep practicing.